this table and getting ready for something special over here. Tasha Bolivar from Galloway, Tony Casagrande from Campos Engineering, Samantha Collins from Dewberry, Hillary Crabb from BHC, Melissa Frauso from Laco Associates, Rachel Paterno from Hillman Consulting, woohoo! Jessica Schmidteder from Vertex Engineering, and Kristen Worrell from Hillman Consulting. So the purpose of our group was to share our experiences and our stories, to provide guidance so that we could teach self-advocacy and help people get their voice. So we wanted to inspire our team to find their voice and then empower them to use it, to take control of their own destiny. So when we started, we took a look at some of the challenges. And thank you to a lot of the other groups, to Zweig, to the teams that were here for providing the resources and the data information. So what we could see is something that we've heard from every group up here. There is an inequity in representing women in the group. There is challenges in getting the salary gap closed. And then we found something also very interesting, that the group of people that have been in some of these surveys, that mental health was also another area here, that in having those resources available to help folks was something that the industry was looking for, particularly the women in the group. So that's where we started. We were able to find some information to add to the ElevateHER's cohort, as well as other groups that have contributed to Zweig's informational resources. And we found podcasts, books, TED Talks that brought up these sensitive topics and provided guidance for folks that were there. These are available on Zweig's website in the resource section. There's an Empower section that's got the information that we were able to come together with. The real highlight of our project is the limited edition podcast series that we developed called What I Wish I Knew. And we have 6 podcasts that were developed that begin with the origin story of ElevateHER, move into the data, talk about our team, and then we were lucky enough to get 3 great folks to join us. And that was Zaida Bezora, the Executive Director of AIA Dallas, Amy Jones, President of O'Connell Robertson, and Colleen Martindale, the Senior Pre-Construction Director for McCarthy Building Companies, to give us advice on finding our way, knowing our worth, and navigating sensitive workplace situations. So these are also available. Our QR code will be up in another slide or two where you can download it. We have mints on the table also that have the QR code that you can listen to these podcasts. We got to give a shout out and a thanks to a couple of the folks that we have been working with that are the real, true MVPs of this team. Got to first thank our host, Rachel Paterno. Without Rachel, we wouldn't have the series put together. She took the initiative to interview the guests, work on the pre-stuff, present questions to the group so that we can work collectively on doing so. And then we've got to give a big shout out to Randy Wilburn from Zweig, who took the ideas of 9 folks and turned it into a podcast series with direction and really good informative information. So I have to give a shout out. Thank you very much, Rachel and Randy. So we have a real special treat for you today. We're about to do a live podcast that is the topic is how moving women into leadership positions in your firm have influenced your firm. So I'm going to now turn it over to Rachel Paterno to introduce our panel and get the podcast started.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel, and today we have a very special live edition of the Empower Space podcast brought to you by ElevateHER. I did want to thank Randy again before I got started. We really would not be here without him. He is our unofficial 10th group member, and you should check out the Zweig Letter podcast also while you're at it. But today, let me introduce our guests. Before we get into our topic of moving women into higher roles. First up, we have Lauren Aguilar, founder and CEO at Elucio. It's a leading expert on diversity and inclusion. Lauren specializes in translating the science of diversity into actionable strategies that organizations and teams can use to foster more diverse and inclusive workplaces. She partners with innovative companies like Airbnb, Credit Karma, Cliff Bar, and eBay. Lauren's superpower is using a data-driven yet human-centered approach to diversity and inclusion. Her research on diversity, team dynamics, belonging, and communication has been published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, Physics Today, Gender News, Symmetry Magazine, the Encyclopedia of Human Relationships, and the Journal of Personality. As a thought leader, she has been featured in Fast Company, Yahoo, Top Employer, Pop Sugar, The Women in Science. She was named a 40 Under 40 by San Francisco Business Times Top Diversity Influencer by Culture Amp, and a distinguished emerging global leader by Women's Sphere. So welcome, come on up. Wherever you like. Next up, we have Blake Calvert, the president and CEO at CORE. Blake is at his best pursuing learning, mentoring others, guiding operations, or exploring new ways to do something better. As president and CEO of CORE, he guides the strategic direction of the firm while managing large project teams, particularly master plans for thriving communities in the regions that CORE serves. In fact, he's spent nearly his entire career planning, designing, and implementing key projects that are cornerstones of significant communities in the Denver area. Blake thrives when he is connecting with his creative side and collaborating with developers, land planners, and architects. He loves to bring unique perspective and innovative engineering solutions to resolve project challenges. So welcome, Blake, come on up. Up next, we have Tony Casagrande, a member of Team Empower Space. Tony is a registered PE and president of Compost Engineering, a minority-owned professional services firm that provides mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering services through its 4 Texas offices. Tony oversees the firm's performance on all contracts, leads innovation in the firm's services and internal processes, and spearheads Compost corporate marketing strategy. Tony is most proud of his contribution to the long-term commitment of the firm to develop the next generation of leaders through intentional recruitment and mentoring of minorities and women. This includes Compost Associates Training and Advancement Program that he co-created and administers. This program helps ensure the firm remains in the able hands of excellent future leaders. Welcome, Tony. And last but not least, a fellow cohort member, we have Karen Purcell, the founder, owner, and president of PK Electrical, an approximately 40-person electrical engineering, design, and consulting firm with offices in Reno, Nevada, and Denver, Colorado. Karen has more than 30 years of experience in electrical engineering and was appointed by the governor of Nevada State to the Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors, and presently holds the position of immediate past chair. Karen authored Unlocking Your Brilliance, Smart Strategies for Women to Thrive in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, drawing on her experiences to inspire young women to pursue and thrive in a STEM career. Karen speaks to the challenges of working in a male-dominated industry and gives advice to encourage women to follow in her footsteps. Karen has spoken to audiences across the US, Australia, and China on the importance of females in STEM, and even founded the PK Electrical Scholarship to provide resources to women to achieve their career goals. Karen also serves on the Justin Hope Foundation board, working to build a supportive and engaging community for families and individuals with disabilities. Welcome, Karen. Come on up. All right, and now let's get into the podcast. How has moving women into leadership positions in your firm influenced your firm? I'll start with you, Tony, since you are a member of Team Empower Space.
Ooh. Okay, great. I'm gonna start with, this is such a badass group of people. Wow, I'm so pleased that I've been able to have this experience, and that kind of leads into one of the first issues that I kind of want to talk about, which is, in general, it might have been just me, but this is generally men in the industry. We just don't have a lot of experience working in large groups of women. And so that kind of it's scary because you kind of see women as maybe alien, or you maybe think about your mom, you think about your wife, think about sisters, aunts, and you're like, gee whiz, how do I deal with women in the work? You're scared to death you're going to screw something up, and that kind of starts where I wanted to lead into this journey. Picture this like 2015, young plucky Tony is trying to buy out the owner of the company, and we're in a big retreat, and coming out of the retreat, 2/3 of our leadership team quits. That kind of tells you a little bit about my personality. They didn't want to work with me anymore. But one of them was our marketing director, a woman who was running a team of women. And so the boss at the time was like, oh, Tony, great. Why don't you go run our marketing team? You need to learn about this. I was a technical guy. And so I go in there, backdrop of scared to death. And I just kind of started getting experience working around women. And one of the women in the group was ready, you could tell there was that factor about her where I was like, okay, this is someone that can do it. So that kind of leads into the first kind of suggestion, which is, you have to be able to look and find people and maybe kind of tag them in a little bit. This woman she had everything, but she didn't have someone actually helping her. So that's like the second thing, which is, jumping in and knowing you're going to have to intentionally help someone move up. So someone mentioned earlier, like stretch assignments. I think a lot of women are just kind of left alone. If you just leave her there, she'll do her thing and I don't have to mess with it. But no, I jumped in and said, Holly, Holly's our marketing director, so the one I'm speaking of. You got to do more. I said things that I would have normally maybe thought to say to maybe men, because I had managed men before. And so identify, lean in, challenge them with stretch assignments, and then really push. I think sometimes men are afraid of doing something wrong, I guess. It goes in your mind. So I just said, what the heck, I'm going to risk this. I'm going to treat Holly like I would anyone else, and I'm going to push. Holly is now our marketing director. Holly is on a path to be a leader, an owner in the firm. She's already a leader in the firm, and it's been fantastic. Different perspective. Holly is brilliant. Holly is sensitive. Holly is thoughtful, unlike the rest of the men on the leadership team, where we're all, kind of like Neanderthal. So she brings this great energy, and then she also creates this path for other women to see that, it's there. I was just at a recruitment session at a university in the Midwest, and we were interviewing a woman, and the first question out of her mouth, how many women do you have at your company? Second question out of her mouth, how many of them are in positions of leadership? And I was like, oh, thank God. I can answer this. We have 10% of our population. We have women in leadership. So anyways, it's been fantastic for us. It's been a challenge. It takes intentionality and really doing something. But I hope it's going to be the new kind of future for our firm.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So besides push that you just said, how else have you helped women in your firm progress in their careers?
You sometimes have to go back to, I'm going to say a dirty word, and don't, give me some grace, quasi-gender roles. You sometimes have to, protect like a father. You have to fight for like a brother. You sometimes have to discipline like maybe, like a father. I just kind of said, what can I do? And it really helped me be comfortable with this idea that I can do something. I can't change who I am completely. I am who I am. And so, you just had to go into a meeting where I saw Holly being overtly disrespected. I mean, we were in a conference. I saw Holly get sexually harassed. I literally was standing next to her. And so you have to say, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit here and just be a punk? Am I going to be like the brother and be like, hey, jerk, stop talking to my marketing director like that, and Holly, we're out of here. That's one example of where, you have to sometimes engage and do things that maybe, if it was someone else, maybe you wouldn't. Does that kind of make sense? And then the last thing is really promoting their ideas when the other groups nailed it. Holly would sit in meetings, and there would be times where I know there's great ideas, but maybe others wouldn't, allow that to happen. And so you kind of say, Holly, what are you thinking? Holly, what's your idea on this? Forcibly engage with them and get other people comfortable with the ideas that come from them.
Awesome, thank you.
You bet.
Karen, you're the founder, owner, and president, but how have you helped women in your firm progress in their careers?
So I have somewhat of a different perspective since I founded my company at the young age of 28 years old, and it was me. And so I am in a position really of leading both men and women. And I think that because I am the CEO and the president of the company, I am also very aware and very in tune to helping women exceed their career goals, meet their career goals within my company, but also within our industry. And so I really try to provide a supportive environment, provide the flexibility that is needed, and know that any one of my employees, whether it's male or female, can come to me at any time. And so, mostly I am leading both men and women, and so it is there is a difference between men and women and how they work and how they lead. And so I really think by providing that supportive environment with flexibility has really been a key to that.
Great, thank you. Blake, how have you helped women in your firm progress in their careers?
CORE's a pretty young firm. We started in 2014, that we're wrapping up our 9th year. And so, I mean, from my standpoint of being the ringleader to get CORE started was to really sit down and to set that vision. A lot of our, and part of that vision is creating a strong purpose and values that guide you. And I can't say CORE's been perfect along the way, but we've gotten a lot better as we've started to kind of push certain initiatives and to get better about structuring the company through our progression of getting larger over the years to about 70 people right now, that we had to be guided much more by that purpose and values, which gets us back to who we hire, who we retain, who we promote, and who we want to be in these desirable leadership positions and everything. And so I think creating that foundation, you have to be laser focused on that, but then part of that foundation from our values is we want to find a way. We want to challenge the status quo. Marcy's quote up there and comment during her presentation, being average is for losers. And that really resonated with me. I did not want to start a firm to just be average. I wanted to challenge, and I wanted it to be open and to be progressive for all. And when you think about, you start a firm because you're a technical person and you think you want to provide a service to your clients and the people in the communities you work in. But then when you start to look at your areas of influence and what you can do to all kinds of people, I'm like, we as leaders of a firm have a greater purpose. And so that's where when we sit down and we can provide for all kinds of people to move into leadership positions and to progress their career, help their families, provide them all kinds of opportunities at the firm and at a leadership level, I feel like that's really my purpose in being in the position I'm in now.
Awesome, thank you. Lauren, how have you helped women in your firm progress in the industry? I know you're not necessarily an AEC firm, correct?
Yeah, so Elusio, I'm the CEO and founder of Elusio, which is diversity, equity, inclusion consulting practice. And we're really trying to live our own values, or walk the talk around diversity, equity, inclusion. And I'll tell you, as someone who has studied the science of DEI for 25 years, trying to do it myself, it is difficult, and I make mistakes. I use the wrong terminology occasionally. I even microaggressed during a keynote talk on microaggressions not that long ago. This is a journey. It is a journey, and we are all on it. This is my life's work and my life's passion, and I still have to remember to keep trying in the face of mistakes and give grace to others and to myself, but to keep pushing forward. So as someone who really loves the science, I'm a data geek, I kind of got to go back to the science. So you asked that earlier question about what does bringing women into top leadership do for a firm. I'd love to, if you don't mind,
Yes.
talk a little bit about that too, because
Absolutely.
many of you've probably heard the business case for diversity, equity, inclusion. And it's really important that we are still talking about that, but we're also talking about the human case. It's not only the right thing to do to create more diverse and inclusive organizations, but it is wonderfully better for the bottom line, better for innovation. So just a couple data points here. When you bring women into top management in your company, it's associated with, on average, an increase of 42 million in company value per year. Wow. I mean, that's like a data point I think we can all get behind. It's also really important for employee attraction and employee retention. So Tony, when you said earlier what these candidates, especially the women candidates, are asking is like, how many women do you have in your leadership? I believe it's 67% of employees are seeking diversity in their next role. And for retention, they're wanting to see that diversity continuing to be a focus in the organization. So it's great for the bottom line. It's great for employee engagement, retention, and attraction, but it's also really great for innovation. You all here in the space of creation and innovation, as well as thinking about safety, which is something I want to talk about a little bit later today. When we think about innovation, companies that have diversity on their teams, like their engineering teams, in their top management, actually reach 4 times the amount of their clients or customers, because they're thinking about the edge users. They're not thinking just about people like me. They're thinking from multiple different perspectives. And I think the value of diversity, like making sure our workforce has more women, and not only women, people of color, people from different neurodiversities, and I could go on and on about all the different types of diversity we can think about, and intersectionalities, both diversity seen and unseen. But what's really important is that when we have diversity on our teams, we also have to think about inclusivity, because it's, bringing people to the table is only part one. Ensuring that all folks have voice, that they feel comfortable speaking up, that they get those stretch assignments, et cetera, is really the next piece, and that's about working on your culture and your processes. So when I think about how do I do this in my own work, I've worked, because in the science fields, those were much more male dominated. I've run in a lot of STEM fields in my research. Those are very male dominated. It was a different position for me. It was about, how do I really make genuine connections with allies who were both my gender and other genders. Now, on the other side of things, as a business owner and a woman of color, I have to think a little bit differently. It's another position. And another data point that really rings true for me is that women are traditionally, and the data shows, over-mentored but under-sponsored. And so what does that mean in action is that mentorship is about getting advice, getting support, encouragement, which we all love and we all need. It's that warm and fuzzy piece of the inclusivity work. But sponsorship is about advocating for that woman. It's about advocating for that stretch position. It's about noticing that her idea got overlooked in a meeting and coming back and making sure that she got credit for that idea. It's about, there's a promotion, and you, if you're in management or leadership, stand up for the woman and say, I really think she can do it. And sometimes that's in the face of bias. A lot of times in those moments during talent reviews, promotions, what we see is folks relying on their own stereotypes, like, well, I really think he has a lot of potential for that leadership position. but her, I just need to see a little bit more evidence before I'm sure that she can perform at that level. These are the types of things that I see constantly when I sit in on talent reviews and what I see in the data. And so it's really important that we bring, I love the comment intentionality was brought up earlier. We need to bring a lot of intentionality to our processes and the way we set up our cultures so that women are getting sponsorship, not just mentorship. So in my work, what I try and do is create relationship connections where there's going to be intentional sponsorship programs around intentional sponsorship, both with women and with men. It's really important that we don't just pair women off, because with the way the demographics of the AEC industry is right now, men tend to hold more positions of power, so we need to pair up men and women. We also need to help men learn how to be allies, learn how to be sponsors. We all can learn from this. I heard earlier Tony spoke about feeling just a little nervous, like stepping into one.
Scared is what I said.
Yeah, scared.
I was
shaking in his boots, stepping into places of what I call allyship or sponsorship. Shout out to men in the room, and especially, I'll say my white men in the room. We're living in a cancel culture. And there are a lot of folks who want to be part of the solution and want to be sponsors and allies, but they're so afraid they're going to say the wrong terminology, have that like foot in mouth moment, so they sit back, or it's sort of passive buy-in, but not championing DEI. So I'd just like to encourage all of you, and it's so amazing to see so many men in the audience here, to give each other that grace, not cancel each other, not finger wag, but allow us to teach each other how to be allies, and put a lot of intentionality around our programs, our processes that stand up our cultures.
Great, thank you. I actually want to bring it back to something you mentioned earlier about the business case, the business perspective. Blake, what, from a business perspective, what impact have you seen after, implementing some of these things to add women to leadership positions?
I'd say it's really started to accelerate what we can do as a firm. Again, we've had very rapid growth, starting from 7 people and now trying to grow over than 70. But when you're scaling a company, you start to hit the ceiling several times. And it's generally because there's some kind of gap that you have internally. And a lot of times that comes down to people. And so we've gone through a process over the last 2 years of really kind of retooling the entire company, and then putting women in leadership positions to model what we want to do as a company. And so of our top leadership of the company, it's 50% right now that women are in the leadership of daily management of the company. And so we want to model that all the way down through all of our positions. And we've been able to easily start to see, after we started to develop our confidence and cadence and getting our leadership team down and our communication down, that things are just getting easier. Our profitability metrics are getting easier and more consistent. We're starting to see more details in all those financials. But then in the world we're living in right now, recruiting and retention is even more important. If we don't have revenue, if we don't have enough people in our firms. And so that's where I think strategically we are ahead of other firms, especially in the Denver market, for what our recruiting teams can do, and our retention strategies, and how we're purposeful in our culture and everything. I just feel like we're significantly more nimble and outperforming what other firms can do in our local market. And we're coming to a town near you someday, so look out.
Great, thank you. Tony, have you seen any business impacts from elevating women into leadership?
Yeah, I would say the quality, I would echo everything that you said, but I would say the quality of what we provide out to the marketplace has come up. And I think that's just because of the unique perspective of the women we have in our marketing department. Our collaborative kind of team like a team effort, like a real team effort, not like a football team where, there's the star and then there's like the defensive tackle. I mean, but like a real collaborative team thing. There was always such a focus on, getting folks' ideas, not moving forward until you have, more collaboration with someone to get a different perspective. So I think the decisions are better than at that point. It's a biblical principle. With many counsel, you make wise decisions, right? I mean, it's an ancient theory. And now with what we have, we are finally kind of accomplishing that ancient theory with maybe a more kind of a new way of looking at it. So I think just like you said, everything's better. Our RFQ responses are like way better. We finally changed our logo. It's like 1,000,000 times better. People actually like, talking in our firm. The overall kind of ethos of the company is more friendly and more connected, and that kind of leads into the culture thing. When we were looking at the previous slides about culture being one of the largest things that people want to see, the culture's better. I think absolutely attributable to intentionally bringing women in, helping them climb up the ladder, and then actually giving them real authority to do things.
Awesome. Karen, have you seen any business impacts from bringing women into leadership with you?
Yes, I would have to also echo what everyone has said. I think that it really has created this more collaborative environment, which really just leads to greater employee satisfaction. Everyone seems very valued. It helps with profitability. All of our teams are just killing it right now. Our marketing BD team is all women, and they do an amazing job. Our project management team is just amazing, and and our engineers, our designers. I think that it really has just helped create our culture and our team environment and be more collaborative and therefore more profitable.
Thank you. All right, we are running out of time, but our final question that we ask all our guests is, do you have any resources that you would like to share with our listeners? Books, podcasts, magazine, TED Talk, anything?
I'm going to go way back.
Okay.
It's an old book. I love this book. It's Dale Carnegie's book, How to Make Friends and Influence People, I think is the way the title goes. It's, don't give up on the old school kind of philosophies. There's a lot of good in things like that. You read it, you're going to be like, it's a bunch of old people, old concepts. But if you apply it, it's kind of what we're doing here. It's all about inclusivity. It really is. It's about honoring people, and it's about learning about people and removing your ego and self. So get that book. It's cheap, it's easy to read, and it'll teach you a lot about dealing with people. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? Lauren?
I'd just like to encourage sort of a broad recommendation to really steep your decision-making in diversity around the science of diversity, equity, inclusion. There's a lot of talk still about how do we help women, and I'd really like us to look at what does the science say, what does the data say, and what it's saying is we've been trying, since civil rights movement to probably less than 10 years ago, we've been doing a lot of the community building for women, networking, executive leadership, let's help women along the path, but that only got us so far. And so when we look at the science, what we're looking at now is that we need to not help but remove barriers that exist because of the unconscious and conscious biases that we all hold, women included, and these things seep into our systems. We design HR systems, performance and promotion systems with bias built in. So I would really encourage us to pull in partners who really deeply understand the science of these mechanisms of bias and create inclusive cultures as you design. There's one particular study I can recommend and can send off and cite later. It really helps us understand why does diversity really work? Well, everyone says, well, you bring lots of different perspectives to the table. Yes, that's true, but there's one research study that shows, it was a study of jurors, that shows it does something else. It actually changes the way that we show up at the table. So they took all these jurors, and in one group they had diversity, in another group they didn't. In the juror group with diversity, the folks in that group showed up differently. They actually remembered case facts better. They were more thoughtful in their deliberation. And that was because the way they showed up was not assuming that everyone shared the same perspective that they did. So they explained their ideas more fully, kind of like looked at the idea from many different perspectives, but not assuming the sort of like common ground that you have when you're working with people with your same identity. So they're more thoughtful and deliberate, and that's one of the ways that we get to all these great outcomes from bringing more women to the table and into management.
Awesome, thank you. Blake and Karen, any last minute resources for our listeners?
I would say nothing that hasn't already been said.
Okay.
I mean, I'd start with, you can go to Zweig's website. When you're there, you can easily find a link to the ElevateHER. There's a ton of data that they've published and presented that's very informative, and just even beyond the facts that were presented here this morning, you could literally spend a lot of time and multiple hours with it and everything. It's some of it's intuitive and insightful, but some of it, it will broaden and kind of stretch your mindset and everything. And I guess I challenge all the male leaders in here to go do that for yourself and educate yourself, because part of being a leader is leading by example. And that's part of one of the reasons why I want to be involved with organizations like this, because I feel like people that look like me are the ones that have to push the change. And so that's a great place to start, and education is key to that.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here today and being on the podcast. For those of you that are interested in hearing our other episodes, you can scan this QR code. It's also out on our board. And we have 6 episodes out right now wherever you listen to podcasts. So please subscribe and listen. And thank you. And now Tasha is going to give closing remarks. Thank you.
Thanks again to our panelists and Rachel, Randy. Our team's had a lot of fun this year, coming together, creating the Empower Space podcast and meeting our objectives. And, as Rachel said, we've got 6, soon to be 7 episodes up there. So use the QR code, take the mints, share them around. That's the big hope, is that all the information here today goes out of this room, gets spread farther. So please share that, and hopefully future cohorts pick this up as well and want to create another series or add on to this series. There's lots of insight, successes, struggles to share, and a podcast is a great place to have that. So that was our mission, and we achieved it, and so yay for us and yay for everybody in this room. So thank you, and we are Team Empower Space.